What if I told you that a single bullet fired on a summer day in 1914 was all it took to plunge the world into chaos? A war so devastating that it changed the course of history forever. But was it really just that one event? Or was it the result of years of hidden rivalries, secret alliances, and simmering tensions waiting to explode? Today, we unravel the true causes of World War I and explore how a tangled web of politics, power, and missteps led the world to the brink of destruction. The date is June 28th, 1914. The place? Sarajevo, Bosnia, a city bustling with life. But on this day, it's about to become the stage for a deadly act that would change the course of history. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife, Sophie, arrive for what should have been a routine state visit. Little do they know, their every move is being watched by Gavrilo Princip, a determined young nationalist with a deadly mission. Princip, a member of the secretive and dangerous Black Hand organization, has one goal: to free Bosnia from Austro-Hungarian rule and unite it with Serbia. As the royal couple's car makes its way through the streets, the stage is set for an assassination that will send shockwaves across the world and ignite a chain reaction no one could stop. This assassination was like striking a match near a barrel of gunpowder. It set off a chain reaction that would plunge the world into chaos. Austria-Hungary, furious and emboldened by the unwavering support of its ally Germany, issued a harsh ultimatum to Serbia, demanding near total submission. But Serbia, while small, wasn't about to roll over completely. Their response wasn't enough to satisfy Austria-Hungary, and in no time, war was declared. What should have been a localized dispute now spiraled out of control as Europe's tangled web of alliances kicked into action, dragging major powers into the fray like dominoes, falling one after another. The stage was set for a conflict that no one could contain. At the heart of this escalating chaos was Europe's intricate alliance system, a ticking time bomb disguised as a safety net. On one side, you had the Triple Entente, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom. On the other, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The idea was simple. These alliances were supposed to keep the peace by creating a balance of power, but in reality, they turned Europe into a giant house of cards. When Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, Russia jumped in to back its Slavic ally. Germany, always eager to flex its military muscles, declared war on Russia and then dragged France into the mess because, well, alliances. But Germany didn't stop there. They decided the quickest way to France was through Belgium. Bad idea. This invasion triggered the United Kingdom to join the fight in defense of Belgian neutrality, and just like that, the world was on fire. What could have been a small, localized conflict turned into an uncontrollable chain reaction thanks to this tangled web of alliances. It was like a bar fight where everyone brought their friends and no one remembered why the fight started in the first place. Militarism was like throwing gasoline onto an already smoldering fire, except this fire had battleships, cannons, and armies ready to march. In the years leading up to World War I, European powers were caught in a colossal arms race, pouring money into building bigger, badder, and more destructive militaries. Germany, Britain, France, and Russia all wanted to prove they were the alpha dog in this increasingly tense game of who's got the biggest guns. Naval rivalry. Nowhere was this arms race more intense than at sea. Britain, proud owner of the world's most powerful navy, suddenly found itself challenged by Germany, which decided to build a fleet that could rival the legendary Royal Navy. This wasn't just competition, it was a high-stakes game of oceanic one-upmanship that cranked tensions, military culture. But it wasn't just about weapons and ships. Militarism seeped into the mindset of nations, creating a dangerous culture where war wasn't just seen as a last resort, it was glorified. Politicians and generals treated war like a chess game, planning bold, aggressive strategies as if millions of lives were just pieces on a board. This obsession with military might didn't just make war more destructive, it made it feel inevitable. By 1914, the powder keg was overflowing with weapons and testosterone, and when tensions finally reached a breaking point, Europe didn't just stumble into war, it charged in with armies fully mobilized and weapons at the ready. Imperialism was like a high-stakes game of Monopoly, but instead of colorful paper money, the players were competing for entire continents, and they weren't playing nice. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, European powers like Britain, France, Germany, and Italy were in a mad scramble to expand their empires, carving up Africa and Asia like it was a buffet. Colonial rivalries. This global land grab led to some serious clashes. Take the Moroccan crises of 1905 and 1911, for example. Germany wanted a piece of Morocco, but France wasn't about to share, and Britain stood firmly by France's side. It was a diplomatic showdown that nearly escalated into war, with tensions simmering just below the boiling point. Economic exploitation. But it wasn't just about bragging rights. These colonies were economic jackpots, rich in raw materials, markets, and wealth. The more colonies a country controlled, the more power and resources it had to flex on the world stage. Naturally, this only made the competition fiercer, with each nation eyeing the other's territories like predators circling prey. Imperialism didn't just spark rivalries, it created a toxic atmosphere of suspicion, competition, and one-upmanship. These global power struggles bled into Europe's alliances, adding more fuel to the already blazing fire of tensions. So when war finally broke out, these imperial rivalries didn't just fan the flames, they turned them into an inferno. Nationalism in early 20th century Europe was like a double-edged sword. On one side, it inspired pride and unity, but on the other, it cut deep, stoking tensions and rivalries that would explode into war. National pride. In nations like Germany and France, nationalism was the glue that held people together, building a shared sense of pride and identity. But with pride came animosity. Old grudges and historical rivalries between nations turned this pride into something dangerous, like neighbors constantly trying to outdo each other in an escalating feud. Ethnic nationalism. Meanwhile, in the Balkans, nationalism had its own volatile twist. Ethnic groups like Serbs, Croats, and Bosnians, living under the rule of empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottomans, wanted freedom and self-determination. Their demands for independence turned the region into a political pressure cooker, earning it the nickname the powder keg of Europe. And then came the spark, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, a direct result of nationalist fervor. But it didn't stop there. Nationalism also fired up the public, rallying populations behind their governments. People cheered for war, convinced it was their patriotic duty to defend their country's honor. Nationalism didn't just light the fuse, it was the fuel that kept the fire burning, driving Europe headlong into one of the deadliest conflicts in history. The weeks following the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, what we now call the July Crisis, played out like a tragic domino effect, with one bad decision toppling into the next. It was a masterclass in how not to handle a global crisis. Ultimatums and escalations. Austria-Hungary started things off with a ridiculously harsh ultimatum to Serbia, practically daring them to refuse. Why? Because they had Germany backing them up with what historians call a blank check, essentially a promise of unconditional support no matter what chaos unfolded. With that kind of reckless confidence, Austria-Hungary was ready to throw down, and they knew it. Failure to de-escalate. Meanwhile, attempts to calm things down were half-hearted at best. Mediation efforts fizzled out as nations dug in their heels, unwilling to back down and lose face. While leaders exchanged telegrams and talked about peace, their armies were gearing up for war. By the time the first troops began to mobilize, the wheels were already in motion, and there was no stopping what came next. The July Crisis wasn't just a failure of diplomacy. It was a catastrophic breakdown of communication, egos, and trust. Instead of putting out the fire, Europe's leaders poured gasoline on it, making World War I not just likely, but inevitable. While it doesn't always get the spotlight, money, like always, was a major player in the events leading up to World War I. Economic factors quietly worked behind the scenes, adding even more fuel to an already smoldering fire. Trade rivalries. The Industrial Revolution had turned Europe into a high-stakes game of economic one-upmanship. Germany's rapid rise as an industrial powerhouse started making Britain nervous. Imagine a newcomer suddenly dominating the field while the seasoned champion feels their crown slipping. Yeah, it didn't sit well. These trade rivalries weren't just about who made the better steel or ships. They were about power, prestige, and who could call the shots on the global stage. Economic instability. And here's the kicker. Some leaders actually saw war as a potential solution to their financial woes. Need to stimulate your sluggish economy? War. Want to open up new markets or grab some valuable resources? War. It's like they thought a little global chaos was a surefire way to fix their balance sheets. Economic rivalries didn't just add tension, they layered complexity onto an already volatile political landscape. The race for wealth and power ensured that when the war finally erupted, the stakes weren't just national pride or territorial ambitions, they were about who would dominate the future of a rapidly changing world. The outbreak of World War I wasn't the result of one event. It was a perfect storm of chaos, egos, and long simmering tensions. Sure, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand lit the fuse, but let's be real, the powder keg had been sitting there for years, ready to blow. The alliance system was like a tightly wound tripwire, ensuring that a conflict between two nations could pull the whole of Europe into the fight. Militarism. And the arms race didn't just build weapons, they built an attitude, a dangerous belief that war was not only inevitable, but also the ultimate way to settle disputes. Imperialism and nationalism fueled rivalries and stoked resentment, dividing nations into camps, ready to duke it out on the world stage. And then came the July crisis, a masterclass in diplomatic failure, where Europe's leaders fumbled every opportunity to de-escalate, practically marching their nations into the abyss. By the time 1914 rolled around, it wasn't just a question of if war would break out, it was a question of when. The result? A global conflict so catastrophic it would forever change the course of history, claiming millions of lives and redrawing the map of the world. Understanding these causes isn't just about studying history, it's about making sure we don't let this deadly domino effect happen again.